Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I am hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So before you look at my previous video and compare it to this video, I want to explain something. The cold weather that's possibly gonna occur is gonna be after this upcoming heat blast. So we're gonna have a period of above average temperatures, very warm temperatures, and it's gonna be downright hot, and that's gonna consist of today, tomorrow, or into Memorial Day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then after that we could get a little cool down. Now it won't necessarily be for the whole United States. It will stay to the eastern United States, stay confined to those areas, but it is noteworthy to talk about, and I kind of wanted to briefly mention it. However, it does look as if the long range is going to be mainly dominated by above average temperatures, with heat being more common than more cold, and that seems to be the trend with most models. Okay, so let's take a look at this and take this one by one. Now, if you would like to subscribe to this channel, consider doing so. I talk about the weather. I do everything related to weather, long-range forecasts, winter forecasts when appropriate, fall forecasts coming up soon. Probably starting June into July, we'll start talking about fall forecasts and the upcoming fall. But as of right now, let's talk about what's present. So consider subscribing if you want. You don't have to. Consider liking if you want. Again, obviously you don't have to. So let's look at this. We are looking at basically the pattern according to the GFS model, and this basically shows us the precipitation rate. You can see millimeters per hour and the mean sea level pressure. So let's take a look at this. Well, in terms of precip, let's quickly glance through this. There's going to be this storm system that's going to bring a lot of moisture into the northern U.S., or into the eastern and northern U.S., and this is going to contribute to a lot of thunderstorm activity, and this is going to be associated with the really warm temperatures that will be occurring, downright hot. Now, again, this is where things start getting interesting. We see this pretty strong storm right off Alberta, and British Columbia, and then move into Alberta, and it tracks across Southern California, why did I say California? I'm sorry. The Southern Canadian plains. And what this does is it brings quite a bit of cool air that is tapped up to the north, and there's a pretty big pool of cooler air to the north. Obviously, it's still it's May, so the cold air to the north is still available, and it's obviously going to be a lot cooler always to the north than it is to the south, especially over such a large area. Not always the case where, from Iowa to Minnesota it's colder. Sometimes it could be way colder in Iowa than in Minnesota, but in this case, the further up north you go, generally, because your safe bet that it's going to be colder. Now let's look at that's obviously for the northern hemisphere, however. So this storm, you could barely see it, but it's happening right there. You could see, we start seeing the 540 line, the chilly air starting to come in, and this is still 120 hours out, so it's still quite a ways away, but it's not awfully far out either. So what this does is it basically shows some features right there, and some colder air would be able to penetrate its way into the eastern United States due to the storm system being strong enough to kind of tap into that air and kind of bring it down. So notice that this actually generates a complete downfall of the warmer temperatures. We see that the cold air really penetrates far. And notice that the showers that we earlier saw scattered across much of the country, you could see, are now, because of the cold, dry air, you can see, are confined to where the cold front lies. Okay, and you can see it's right there across the Ohio Valley, into the Texarkana area, if you will, a little bit north of that, and into parts of the Northeast. So as we go further, this does not really make its way as far south as some previous models have been showing, but it does definitely make a large impression, especially across the Northeast. Now, in case you're wondering, the West will be absolutely sweltering at this point. It will be very hot. So, it's appropriate to say that while fall temperatures may be occurring across, parts of the Northeast and Michigan and UP of Michigan, they won't be occurring across the West, as it will be very warm there. in fact, hot. And then as we go further along, it's only really those couple of days around the next weekend. We see from Thursday and ends around Monday, and then we start seeing another pattern of heat. That heat that was in the west kind of starts moving towards the east, and then we see those those warm conditions yet again arise, and that will lead to above average temperatures. So let's now look at the 2 meter temperature anomalies to give us, I guess, a broader view of this. So, as I was just on a precip, which doesn't really show the temperatures, but if you look at the mean sea level pressure, you could definitely identify it with a trained eye. So let's look at this. Right now, you could see maybe a little bit of cooler air associated with some system, and here we see heat, very warm temperatures. It's late May, early June at this time, so heat is just dominating at this point. And again, that's according to yesterday's video. That's 100% right. We're gonna continue to see that the pattern does look to be dominated by heat and above average temperatures. However, there will be a period you can see right there where we get a little bit of a cooler shot of air, and especially into the northeast, we see several days that are below average. Illinois, Iowa, I mean, a good portion of the eastern coast or eastern U.S. is below average, and then it's kind of meanders around in the northeast for quite a while. But notice that then that heat from the west, which again I told you would be very above average, now moves into the eastern U.S., and then that's basically all the cooler air is history. So this is constant. I guess it will be a constant battle between the air masses, and it really seems that the battle will be won by the warm this time around, other than again that little time frame for next week. And now if you're wondering, the GFS with its irrationality, that may be the cause of this. Well, if you look at the European, it's showing some pretty strong signatures as well, and it's actually stronger than what the GFS is showing. So let's look at the 500 millibar height and mean sea level pressure again, so we have that consistency. This is basically measuring the heights in the atmosphere at a certain level at 500 millibars, whether the heights are above average or below average. And obviously, the colder the air, the temperature at 500 millibar will be below, and the temperature at 500 millibars will be above if it's warm. So you could see that basically what we see going on here is the warmth dominating much of the country up until that point, which was again as described in yesterday's videos. And then we see that cool air mass, which is actually pretty significant. If it was further displaced to the south, we could have seen a pretty significant dip and a pretty significant cool down. This would be pretty significant if it was just a little bit oriented more to the south. That's definitely potential, right? But it just barely skims the northeast, really doesn't do much, but it definitely does. It definitely does definitely leaves a mark, and it's definitely notable. So, but notice again the heat that was in the west then just spreads into the east, and that just really wipes all the cold air out, and it just remains above average. In fact, heat, summer-like heat weather. So above average seems to be the dominant thing, but again, that little period of cool weather is on its way. And again, it seems like the west will be very warm at that period. The west just seems above average for most of the time. Maybe in the coming especially the coming days will be extremely hot. There may be a few days where it's cooler, but it's really again going to be dominated by above average, and it seems like that will be for most of the country. And if you were to look at, say, the Canadian model, I usually don't like to look at this model for temperatures, as it's usually a bit erratic and shows, it's not really reliable. But in this case, you can see it agrees, it shows it, but even further to the north than the European and GFS. And generally, again, you can see it's like that heat that is dominating. It's not really, the cool weather that is described there. If you were to quickly look at the 8 to 14 day outlook by the Climate Prediction Center, which is a good gauge of what's to come, they definitely do have the below average temperatures right there across parts of the northeast, and that's definitely an indicator of what could possibly be there. If you were to look at it yesterday's surface temperature map for the forecast of May 30th through June 5th, it was a little bit more aggressive, the colder. Now it has backed off, and rightly so. The models have done so as well. And you can see below average conditions, which is usually associated with a little bit of cooler air, but it's not really consistent. As you can see, below average is across the Wyoming, Montana area, and in the temperature, that's where the epicenter of the heat is. Let's look at the 6 to 10 day outlook if we can. Let's scroll this back up. and click on this. This is a little shorter range, you know, from May 29th or June 2nd, so a different time frame. You can see it's mainly warm. If we were to look at the precipitation probability, you can see it stays below average for much of the northern U.S., which is actually fairly good news. Is that we've been drenched here, especially across the kind of the Illinois, the western Great Lakes have been absolutely drenched with rain. If you recall, Michigan, the levees or the dams that broke, that was due to the heavy rain and nothing really else. That's been tormenting those areas. So that's definitely something that we're looking forward to. And again, the heat, we definitely need some warm temperatures. So we'll see how this all plays out, guys. But again, the chance for some cooler temperatures is possible. But again, it seems like it will be mainly dominated by the heat, the long range. So just wanted to quickly give this video out to you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something new. And I'll catch you all guys in the next episode. See ya.